One time, we successfully mated a bulldog with a Shih Tzu.
Really? That's weird.
Yeah, we called it a bullshit.
Okay, is this guy just making it up as he goes? Yep. Is it all BS? Yep. Here's Big Nate with some more BS, because it's BSing with Big Nate.
BSing with Big Nate. That was Braincell with Defensive Wounds. And if you haven't watched BSing with Big Nate, first of all, there's a lot I'm passionate about in this area and the music that's coming out of this area. We're going to call it just the state of Virginia. Braincell is definitely one of those things that I have a high amount of passion for. And I've been chatting with the guys, and I've been getting teases and teases and teases of this track for almost a damn year. So I'm glad Defensive Wounds is finally here. There's a lot I want to talk about. Will and Joe joining me on this edition.
How you doing,
Will?
dude?
Hello. How's it going?
Will,
How are
first
you?
and foremost, I want to start talking to you first.
All right.
We're going to move on to the video here in a second, but there is something about this track that stands out to me, and Joe pointed out to me that you were probably the one most responsible. Granted, you play bass in Braincell. There's this little sting that just permeates this track. You want to talk about that?
Well, I did write quite a bit of the guitar for it as well. By sting, do you mean like there's like a specific style that seems to be there, or are you referencing the high end of the synthesizers?
The high end of the synthesizers.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was trying to point out.
Okay, I suspected as much. Yeah, that's a very, very much like a thing that is pretty closely related with anytime I produce music, I'm always looking for an excuse to put in some weird noises and some synthesizers. And in Braincell, it was an opportunity to kind of play up some of our more industrial elements, because all of us grew up listening to metal bands that used like a lot of samples and like weird noises. Like Slipknot immediately comes to mind. I mean, they have a whole damn member who does nothing but that. And I kind of have always wanted to do it. So here it is, yet again, on a song that I have had hands on.
It turned out really good too. So
No, Joe is spot on. It turned out really good. Everything sounds so full. And every time I was sent a sample or a mix, it'll be one of those things where here's what we're working on. And then Joe, 10 minutes later, nope, now this is it. And it was the same track, but like different little things were tweaked.
Ooh.
And every time it was like, well, better. And eventually I was like, the bubble's going to burst. Like eventually you're going to hit a point where
It starts getting worse.
but it never did. And I think you guys knew when to call it quits and kind of call it a complete track. I do have to ask, whose idea was this track?
I think if I remember correctly, it started as I got a 7-string guitar after playing guitar for quite a while. My first one ever. It's right here, and it can be seen in that music video. And I immediately started writing with it. I had no idea how to properly approach writing on a 7-string. And I wrote like 3 riffs, and the first 2 were crap, and the third one was the song. And, it kind of ballooned from there.
I could write 12 songs on a 7-string, and not one of them would sound as good.
Well, the kicker with this, though, and it's a blessing and a curse being able to produce music from the comfort of your own home, right? Because also it's really difficult to tell yourself when to quit. And as you referenced at the top, Defensive Wounds came together over the course of about a year. And it was honestly because we had the luxury of just kind of messing around and tweaking this new sound that we were working towards. So yeah, it definitely something that went through a zillion revisions, but along the way I learned a ton more about mixing and mastering music in general. So I think it was worth the time spent.
also, I think the idea for the song, like lyrically and the sound, Steven wanted to introduce a little bit of horror elements too. So he asked me to write some horror lyrics, and I was a really big fan of that personally because I'm a big fan of Lordy and they're horror rock. So once we got onto that wagon, it did just kind of like the imagination and creativity just started flowing. And Will, with his synthesizer magic, like he comes up with this really like eerie vibe behind
That's it, right? It's all about creating a vibe. So I mean, a lot of like the electronic instruments are put on this tune specifically to give it that kind of like it's parts of it are supposed to kind of just sound upsetting. There's a lot of dissonance going on there, and it's all because of Joe's lyrics. Like they really drove a lot of the sound because, as we had said, the song came together over the course of the year. So the lyrics were there well before the end of it, and they really informed the kind of tail end of production.
Yeah, I mean, no one describes a beefy synth hook. Like that's not a thing.
Yeah, and I don't want to be like that synth
shreds.
band, right? I want it to be like a support instrument that just, like I said, gives you a vibe.
And it adds so much atmosphere to the track. Like this, and that's kind of my biggest takeaway from this one. I look back, there were, I know you both kind of grew up on CDs and compilations and the physical copy. The one that stands out to me is there was the Masters of Horror compilation.
Yeah.
And this could easily fit on there, if not like one of the Saw soundtracks.
Sick.
Like this would be just something like very much so would fit. And the video, holy
Bobby Hutari.
Yeah, man, that guy makes us look cool.
He did a good job. We actually had just a few hours to work with our extra Jay Brooks, and we were able to just knock it out of the park. And Bobby had a vision, and he just went with it.
We shot this for, I want to say 13 or 15 hours straight. Started about 6:30 in the morning and stopped. What was it, 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night? I don't know. It was getting late, and we were
it was
definitely feeling it by the end. But I mean, this guy, I don't have enough nice things to say about Bobby. He remained focused the entire time. Great sense of humor. Just a creative vision from the jump. Like he knew exactly what to do, and it wasn't like any of it was pre-planned. A lot of these shots were, we had a notion of what we wanted, but we had to go out into the woods, like on this location, and figure out where we wanted to do all of it. So there's a lot of spontaneity in play here. And so if you want a music video, you need to talk to Bobby.
No, it all came across very organically. I do have an actual question with the with everything in mind. Joe, how many times have you peed in the woods?
For that take, maybe like 26.
Oh my God.
No,
was that pre-planned or like I'm gonna go rock a piss and then it happened?
I like to tell everybody it's an homage to the Braincell track On the Piss, but in reality, that is not the case.
Yeah, that idea just kind of made its way in there just as like a, what would you call it? Somebody in a horror movie goes out in the woods, to drink or, go take a piss or go get the cooler full of beer and then they don't come back.
We needed a reason to make Joe leave.
As far as first deaths go, that's not the worst way to go out, assuming it was instantaneous, which in your case I'm gathering is not, because it's probably not instantaneous being hoisted like 20 feet in the air.
There's a real life story that goes along with that scene that we can come back to, but please continue.
Oh, no, interrupt me with that. What's the real life story?
Joe, you cool with me sharing some of this?
Absolutely.
So Joe comes to us like well before we shot this video, and he's like, I know what I want to do. I want to be hung. And he knew how he was going to do it. And we have this like harness that we use and everything. But the harness is like a safety harness, like for falling. So it's not really meant for climbing. It's not meant to support you. And the thing about those harnesses is if you hang in them for like 10 or more minutes, you start getting what's called harness fatigue, where your limbs start going to sleep, but you can't feel it. And then suddenly it's like really hard for you to breathe because your heart rate, like you have so many things just cinched down over your major arteries. It'll knock you out. Anyway, Joe was up there for about 25 minutes. And about the 20-minute mark, he's like, guys, I'm going to have to get down. And he was like starting to be in some serious pain. Like it was definitely uncomfortable on all the bits and bobs. And Bobby's like, we got one more shot, just one more shot. And Joe's like, do it. And so we line it all up. And between each shot, like there's a hood over Joe's head because low budget video. And between each shot, Richard, who was the tall tree man, could reach up and take the hood off Joe's head to look at his color. And so anyway, we did this last shot and Richard goes up and Joe had been beat red before the shot. And then the hood is removed and there is Joe, white as a sheet. And he's like taking forever to track us with his eyes. And he can't really talk to us. And we're like, oh God, get him down. And then the thing after that was Joe's legs had gone to sleep. So he couldn't stand on Jay's shoulders, who was very tall and had lifted him up on his shoulders to relieve some of the weight. So then we had to get him down. And then there was this whole thing where the rope we had used had accidentally gotten wet and it like bit into the tree and didn't want to let him down. And it was just it was an actual real life horror scenario, very Final Destination style that almost went down when we shot this video. So hopefully that makes it well and truly haunted.
And it didn't
Joe
help.
almost died.
It didn't help. It didn't help that the fact that I didn't know that you can get harness fatigue till after the shot.
Yeah, Richard was like in the back, like, this is what's going to happen. But he like didn't tell Joe so he wouldn't freak out. Oh, man. But then here's the thing. Joe hits the ground, immediate migraine, right? Like immediate.
Yeah, because
like
all of your blood's like, your heart's trying to figure out where to pump shit.
It takes him like 30 minutes to recover. And then like 10 minutes after that, we now have to do 4 or 5 hours of performance shot where Joe is screaming. So this guy is a freaking trooper.
It was a blast, honestly.
MVP though.
Joe's the hero. That's for certain.
I knew the risks, but it looks cool. And, you know, like Will said, low budget. I mean,
it worked out in the end.
Yeah, it worked out. And
we did have the means to cut him down. I don't want to over dramatize this, but It was a pretty serious few moments.
Yeah.
I just envisioned a scenario where Joe's up there like, no, don't cut me down. We're going to get the shot.
Well, it wasn't quite like that, but we did keep going over to him and just like swinging him. So he would just like,
yes,
because he couldn't
that'll
stop.
Shave off the harness fatigue.
Yeah. I think it just was funny to see him like spin around slowly. I definitely have a behind the scenes video of me like spinning him and giggling insanely.
Was anyone at any point tempted to like start throwing shit at him?
I think we all agreed not to because we realized how uncomfortable that had to be almost instantly. So we avoided doing any sort of missile throwing, but we did kind of rotate him.
That's why you are all better people than I am. So I've got to ask, of course, throughout the video, you all have an opportunity to die. What is your favorite?
Joe?
I really enjoyed Richard's death scene because it's just like a lot of blood and it's kind of like off to the distance a little bit. And, you know, it's got a really cool shot of Will being like right there. And then it pans out to Richard, or not panning, or focusing.
Yeah, the focus shifts.
And that's
I love that.
And that's another creative thing that I like about Bobby is that he knows how to like portray some of these shots, and that one and the next one I thought D's was pretty clever because it had Will run past, and then he looks back and there's D, strung up and everything.
That was another super uncomfortable shot D had to endure, but they got it in though. And as for me, honestly, my favorite is probably it's not super flashy, but I have to say Steve's, because we ran up this little bank that was just like covered in a whole bunch of very dry, very loose leaves, and we were all in like these dumb boots, so it's slippery as hell. And we were supposed to like play like we were falling up this hill. We didn't need to play. We actually fell up this hill. We bruised the shit out of our knees, or the heck out of our knees. Sorry, Nate. And, the best part is we had to get this shot where I turn around and grab Steve's hand and try to like pull him up the hill, but like the big bad like rips him back down. And I kept laughing every time. And then I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll just like, scream curses or whatever, because there's no actual audio of me. So they'll just like see. And it didn't help. Like we had to do that so many times because I kept laughing. So whenever I see it, I think of that. But more seriously, I gotta agree, Richards. Also, it was extremely cold that day. Like extremely cold, and Richard had to just dunk his head in freezing water, and that's another thing.
That's true.
Awesome.
I mean, that's definitely second most committed. I do have to ask. We never concretely find out who's doing all of the killing, and after this conversation, do we find out concretely? Because
maybe there'll be a sequel. Maybe there won't be.
I feel like there's not a concrete answer, but I have a theory after Joe pointing something out to me, is that Will is running behind a lot of these murders.
I love that so much. And then in the end, it was my own hubris that did me in.
So,
yeah, you can.
First of all, I love this direction, but I've got to know, like, is this going to be a series?
So there have been thoughts on this, because I like the idea of creating a bit of canon around these woods and giving them a bit of backstory where all sorts of bad, nasty stuff happens. But it's a loose idea at best, and we haven't explored it yet. So the true answer is maybe we will find out, maybe not. Personally, I enjoy the ambiguity of it, because in reality, that you can make that monster into any sort of metaphor you want, really.
And another thing too, when we were shooting, we generally had no sections of like, okay, this will go to this part. The scene will go to this part of the song.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like, let's shoot it and, let Bobby do his work, which I thought was pretty cool. It lets him have free roam over how the video is going to look. And he did a damn good job. So, yeah. So, but going back to what you were saying, we'll probably, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe not.
So you don't think Will and Bobby are in cahoots?
To just murder everybody?
It's a long con they're running. They're on to you, Joe.
I'm just like counting the minutes until someone tells us that the whole video is a COVID metaphor. Like it's inescapable, and there's nothing we can do about it.
I'm gonna refrain, but I really don't think you have to worry about that. I think it's a good, fun video. I think a lot of people are gonna dig it. I'm very
Okay.
excited.
Don't
I've been
overanalyze
so
it.
excited. I've been so excited for so long, ever since Joe kind of first presented everything to me, and I'm so glad it's finally here. Of course, Braincell's defensive wounds. Watch the video, dudes, dudettes, humans. It's a lot of fun. It's good Friday night watch. Will, Joe, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Nate. Always a pleasure.